I don't agree with him, and I think there are very few people who would make that argument. The truth is that Scotland's changing. It's a much more confident country, and in the referendum, the 2 million people who voted to stay part of the United Kingdom wanted change. No one was campaigning for the status quo, and there's a real thirst all across Scotland for dramatic change, and that's what we've been offered today. And I think today's announcement on the Smith Commission on tax and welfare can bring people together, yes voters and no voters, and we can put the divisions of the referendum behind us, leave that for an argument for the historians, and never ask anyone ever again whether they were a yes voter or a no voter, but just ask one another about what we can do together to make this great country of ours fairer, more socially just and more prosperous. And I think it's a really exciting time in Scottish and British politics.
But if people in England are paying different tax, they've got different welfare spending, the sense of we're all in it together, to coin a phrase, is going to evaporate, isn't it, between England and Scotland?
Well, today's announcement isn't about more money for Scotland, it's about more responsibility and more power being moved out of London into Edinburgh, and hopefully out of Edinburgh very quickly into towns and cities all across Scotland. So it's not about additional resources. The important thing here is, at the moment, the Scottish Parliament spends money but doesn't raise it. And the fact is that when they're unhappy about anything in the Scottish Parliament, too often they blame London and too often they blame someone else. In future, if there's not enough money to go around in Scotland, the people in the Scottish Parliament can only look in the mirror for the person to blame. So that's a really important change. But it's about delivering on the vow. In the referendum, we said we would give more power to the Scottish Parliament. Today's announcement not just meets that, but exceeds it, because this power on welfare in particular is really very important. It can help us end worklessness in so many families, but of course there are implications across the whole of the United Kingdom, and surely now is the time for England, and possibly Wales, but certainly England, to have its own constitutional convention about how it charts its future unwritten constitution in a way that it feels comfortable.
And what's your view on that? Should Labour MPs from Scotland be able to vote on English matters?
Well, personally, my view is there should be a written constitution across the entire United Kingdom. It took Scotland 2 decades to get to this position. We had a process where all of the political parties, the churches, the businesses, the trade unions, people all across the country got together and came to these conclusions. Now, Ed Miliband, I think rightly, and I suspect you might expect me to say this, but I think absolutely rightly, said let's do a similar thing in England.
Yeah, but the issue is what you write in it, and it's a very big issue this now, isn't it? Because
it wouldn't be for me to tell the people of England what they put into a constitutional convention.
If you're leading Labour in Scotland, you surely have a view whether Scottish Labour MPs should be able to vote on English matters.
I think we still have a UK Parliament. Parts of the tax system will still be reserved to the House of Commons. The national insurance system, the pension system, and many other taxes are part of the United Kingdom system. We still have those common taxes. We still pool and share resources. Today is an important change, a really significant change, but it doesn't alter some of those important issues. So surely, in light of what's been announced today, David Cameron maybe reflects on it and says his quarter-baked rushed plans for English votes for English laws aren't up to the scale of the challenge facing England now, and let's, in a much slower pace, have a degree of a constitutional convention, which we've had in Scotland all of those years. But today, I'm pretty excited about what's happening in this city. I know I'm in the dark of Edinburgh now, but this city is about to have remarkable new powers. The important thing is to get the powers out of this city and all across communities throughout Scotland, so that we can build a fairer country.
Let's just jump 2 big ifs. Let's suppose you do become elected leader of Scottish Labour, and we end up in a situation where you are the First Minister of Scotland, which for the SNP right now looks quite difficult. But in those circumstances, would you ever be able to say to the Scottish people, you should pay higher taxes than the people in England?
Yes, I think with the responsibility of having these powers, you also have to set out your stall. So rather than the conversation about should we have the powers, the debate now is about how do we use them. And my view is that those people in Scotland who earn over £150,000 should pay a little bit more tax, a 50p top rate of tax, and if necessary that would be in Scotland and Scotland alone. But of course that's the Labour Party policy across the entire United Kingdom. But I think you can have a system where the people in Scotland pay a different tax rate. I happen to have confidence in the sense of solidarity, the sense of social justice of my fellow Scots, and I think that should be reflected in our tax system in a way that it isn't always been in the past. So yes, I think, Adam, the straight answer to your straight question is people in Scotland can pay different rates of taxes to the rest of the United Kingdom.